Yo, we're out here. We're right here. We're doing it again. What are we doing? Games. Ooh, this thing wants to update. Okay, of course. Of course, there's an update. You want to do something? You might as well have an update. Yep. And then I'll remove that channel in a second once I get all my fucking things up on there. Just need to remember to do that by like the end of the week or whatever.
A little bit. Look at that. Is it better? That's amazing. Not bad, right? Wait, look at that. It's like smoother. Oh, it's like perfect.
Also, with this, I will say it's important to note that Bobby tagged the hair care brand that they were using in the caption saying, hey, the products are currently available. When you know it, that beauty company was co-founded by Scarlett Johansson. But it wasn't so much the sneaky advertising that was pissing people off. It was more the way that she was interactive. Or people thinking, it seems like they're just being girls. Bobby's touching and fixing Scarlett's hair. They could have felt a lot different than how she talked with her black guest. Which is why you saw tweets popping off saying things like landing an interview with a white woman and immediately dropping her entire gimmick and just being nice instead is so insane. As well as she completely changed her tone. As a result, I want y'all to ignore her forever. Her shtick is giving racist. So there you had some pushing back saying, hey, this is more about a woman on woman thing, arguing that she's done her whole awkward, condescending shtick with white guests like Charlie Puth and Mark Cuban. But with all this, I gotta ask, what are your thoughts here? Do you think this is a nothing situation that people are just kind of trying to stir up to have some fun with?
I think
drama?
it's a nothing
Do you see this as a
situation.
big issue, or
I think
does
she's
it rub
playing a
you the wrong
character.
way? Or is there possibly an answer in the middle? Like maybe this is the beginning of her pivoting away from a shtick that maybe gets stale
And I
pretty
think
fast.
when she looks at
Although,
Scarlett
if we're being
Johansson, she
honest,
sees
it's not
someone
a
like
new
her.
shtick. Zach Galifianakis did a great version of it.
Subconsciously, unconsciously, next Yep.
What about this mess regarding the House Speaker? Because yesterday, House Republicans officially nominated Representative Steve Scalise to be Speaker of the House in a closed-door party meeting, with Scalise narrowly beating out Representative Jim Jordan by just 113 to 99 votes. So also, very notably, almost a dozen other Republicans also voted present or for another candidate entirely. Now, historically, once a party nominates Speaker internally, everyone else falls in line and honors that decision in a full floor vote. But of course, none of that really matters when you live in the age of unprecedented shit. And so when an unexpected, but again, totally unprecedented move, some members are refusing to back Scalise as Speaker. So as a result, as I'm starting to record this story, his nomination has not yet been brought up for a full vote yet.
He just dropped out,
whip up enough votes
buddy.
to avoid an open duty on
He
the
just
floor.
dropped
Also,
out.
it's genuinely unclear right now if Scalise can get enough votes, and it increasingly looks like he won't. There's no world where Democrats back Scalise, and the
He
GOP
literally
majority
just
is so
dropped
slim
out,
that
so
the whole thing
maybe,
falls apart, and even 5 Republicans vote against the nomination. But as of recording, at least 16 Republicans have indicated they will not back Scalise. And it's not just one faction of the party that's opposed to his nomination. Right on one side, you have far-right members who back Jordan and say they'll either vote for him again on the floor or just vote against
He
Scalise.
literally
Also,
just
despite the fact that his
dropped out,
spokesperson
buddy.
for Jordan
You're
said that
missing
he
it.
would actually back Scalise in the floor vote.
You're
Also, I
missing
just
it.
gotta mention this because it was the funniest
He
fucking
literally
thing I
just
saw.
dropped
Yesterday,
out.
Nancy Mace was on CNN talking to Jake Tapper, and she was like trying to make up, really, but describe this world where Democrats actually like Jim Jordan, which resulted in this back and forth.
I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
Jim Jordan.
Yes, I've talked to Democrats over the last week on who do they trust.
No, you haven't. God, I wish Nancy Mace.
Jim Jordan from Ohio.
Yes, the Jim Jordan from Ohio.
Democrats in Congress.
Yes, they can work with him. Those that
Name one Democrat from Congress that tried to
people off the record. They trust him more than they trust the former speaker.
I just loved it so much. But back on track. Part of the group saying they will not vote for Scalise include classic assholes who thrive off dividing their own party, like Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene. But then also on the other side of the Republican Party, you have some Kevin McCarthy loyalists who are still mad that he was ousted and saying they will not back Scalise in a full floor vote. And then at the same time, there are also a good number of Republicans who say they won't support Scalise for totally different reasons. This including the man boy who never told a lie, Representative George Santos, who tweeted that he won't support
Breathe easy. Watch your side and never quit.
What? Not even a bottom.
Scalise dropped out, bro.
Also, Representative Ken Buck said he won't support anyone who refused to clearly say the 2020 presidential election was not stolen from Trump. Should at least refused to do so. And then finally,
Time for the Dancing Syndicate dog.
May Solely was one of the 8 Republicans who voted in favor of ousting McCarthy, and she has said that she won't vote for Scalise because he attended a white supremacist conference 2 decades ago and once compared himself to you. Which, I can criticize her and make fun of her for other things, but solid reasoning there. Also, on the note of those 8 Republicans that ousted McCarthy, it's actually actually been reported
I'm
to
the
be
jump
a
master.
backstory.
AJ
But also,
Shea,
as of
lead
course, we
them
don't know
away.
what's actually going to happen. We're just kind of watching the Republicans roll around in their shit. Meanwhile, the House is basically unable to function at all, which totally means they can't make key decisions on things like aid to Israel or preventing a government shutdown next month. But yeah, all we know is that something will happen at some point. If things stay on trend, just expect it to be stupid and or horrible. And that's
Yes,
not
sir, Landia.
Everything to draw first blood.
Well, thanks to the sponsor of today's show, Shady Rays, they've got you covered. Right, Shady? Now, the most insane saltwater resistant. But the big thing for you, and we should talk about Sound of Freedom, because over the summer, while everyone was really focused on Marvel, so fantastic movie,
Enough
there was
lying
also a lot of
around. We
conversation
dropping.
around Sound of Freedom, though it felt like a lot of people's understanding of it was really based on the headlines they saw passing on Twitter. So I want to break that down as well as the things that we have learned. The movie tells the story of the U.S. federal agent who quits his job as a and on the surface, it brings
An enemy landed near me.
then
Watch this.
suddenly exploded into a box office hit with Hollywood absolutely shocked. I mean, the film grossed more than $183 million domestically since July, beating out the new Mission Impossible and Indiana Jones. And it actually became the 19th highest earning independent movie of all
Rings
time.
nearby,
Of course,
1 minute
the
too
question of
close.
why is this film so popular? What in the world was driving that? And then the journey to try to understand it.
Where did the
we
dude land
discover
near us?
It's so much more than just this movie. So with you over the next few minutes, let's go down this rabbit hole. So to start things off, we have our main protagonist, Tim Ballard, the person who Sound of Freedom is based on. Right? He was born in California and so he became a CIA officer in 2001 for less than a year. Though Vice said they were unable to confirm it. Then he worked at Homeland Security for decades. It says that he became increasingly disgruntled with how little he could legally do to combat trafficking abroad for his U.S. office. And according to his account, everything changed when he learned about a missing Haitian boy by the name of Gardy Marty, and DHS wouldn't let Ballard work on the case. So the story goes, he founded Operation Underground Railroad, an anti-trafficking organization in 2013, where the group of so-called operatives who ventured to Haiti in search of the boy whom they have not found to this day. But nevertheless, the mission has helped them raise tens of millions of dollars in, according to OUR, rescue thousands of children. But the group's stories are about as cinematic as they are difficult to fact-check. The two Vice reporters, Anna Merlin and Tim Marshall, are trying to do just that. Well, they found to be outright false. They documented in their own words a pattern of image burnishing and mythology building, a series of exaggerations that are in aggregate quite misleading. Let's take the
Extended
example
match
of
mag,
Susan
yeah.
Emma,
Level
trafficking
3.
victim whose story Ballard would repeat frequently over the years following 2019. According to him, she was kidnapped in Central America at the age of 13, though 11 and later retelling events, smuggled across the U.S. southern border to New York. There, he said that she was forced to have sex with men 30 to 40 times a day. Then, Operation Underground Railroad helped her escape that hell and took her into its care while she healed. But Ballard's recounting reportedly plays loose with the facts big and small. Right? In reality, Liliana came from Mexico, not Central America, and she was 14 years old at the time, not 13 or 11. Also, the 30 to 40 number is more than double the 15 to 20 that Liliana herself testified throughout. Not that it makes them less horrific. Also, strictly speaking, she wasn't kidnapped against her will, but rather became romantically involved with a 17-year-old boy whose family convinced her to follow them to the U.S. for a better life. And that's an important detail that's been
Extended
very
light
focused on,
mag,
because
yeah.
common criticism
Level
of
2.
OUR that puffs up these sensational stories of just brazen kidnappings and heroic rescues, but obscure the actual reality of how most sex trafficking works, with it usually involving the victim being trafficked by someone that they know who exploits their emotional and financial dependency to manipulate them into doing sex work. And then lastly, Ballard
Calling
claimed
it a
that OUR
lifeline
helped
package.
Liliana escape, which is flatly untrue. She left her abusers on her own without anyone's help. Psychological manipulation and physical violence. Their only
Evo
meeting
shield
on
here.
representative
Level
years
2.
later as she was preparing to testify in court, though it's not clear how much the group was actually involved in her case. OUR has used her story in fundraising materials to attract donors, and Ballard has used it to promote Trump's wall at the southern border, which may sound weirdly unrelated, but it signals how Underground Railroad's work is fundamentally a right-wing project. Because unlike Liliana's story, most of OUR's public image rests on the dramatic stings it conducts abroad. Those missions follow the tradition of what critics have labeled a media-friendly, militarized humanitarianism, with this being where operatives, mostly white, religiously
Charging
devout men,
battery.
go undercover in foreign countries, and then have the police burst in and haul off all the bad guys in a dramatic raid. You know, you got cameras rolling to capture the whole experience, so the donors back home can cheer it on and feel good about themselves. But then, as critics point out, that the women supposedly saved by this aggressive raid-style approach might suffer additional trauma from the experience. Plus, actually frequently end up facing arrest or deportation. This has been the model for many faith-based anti-trafficking organizations since the 1990s. Critics going on to say that unlike the established network of groups that work closely with government agencies to offer professional help, these groups don't know what to do. It was important that the two people who worked with OUR on overseas operations
John
telling Vice
Bolt
they had
here.
no meaningful
Level 4.
surveillance or identification of targets, no development of assets, no validating that people they
Standard
sought
stock
to
here.
rescue had in
Level
fact been
3.
trafficked, or the people they were targeting were indeed traffickers. And in addition to no meaningful follow-up with people who had been rescued on the mission. Instead, of these sources and public accounts, videos of OUR mission shows these ops, these guys walking through a town and
Phoenix,
flashing
get here.
thousands of dollars in clubs and bars. And when they find them offering them illegal age, they push for girls who are younger, which which is actually a method anti-trafficking experts have criticized, saying that it could inadvertently increase demand for trafficking, with their argument being that rather than finding minors who were already being trafficked requesting one of the victims could cause traffickers to then try and find people to fill that request. And this is most of the law enforcement agencies and anti-trafficking groups that Vice reached out to said that they had no idea what OUR is or have extremely thin connections to it. But then, when you go deeper, OUR's methods have been described as unprofessional and downright bizarre. In 2014, Ballard said he got a tip that Darty Marty, the Asian boy we mentioned earlier, and several other trafficked children were being kept in a building. So he and a group of operatives swooped in under the cover of a medical team to attempt the rescue operation, with Ballard even calling Marty's father, who had been searching for his son for years, and telling him they knew where he was. And then finally, Ballard revealed he gave him a tip to two people who were there independently verifying the same story, and one telling Vice. Then shows up with this woman, this very sheltered-looking soccer mom in Utah, and he's being very defensive and won't let anyone talk to her. After a couple of days, I figured out she's a fucking psychic. That's his fucking source. Her name was Janet Rustin, a medium from Utah who claimed to speak to a Mormon prophet from 600 BC named Nephi. Reportedly, OUR relied heavily on her so-called vision, both the location
New kill leader. Eyes up, farm.
Unsurprisingly, the missions turned out no.
Listen up, I'm calling a lifeline package in.
Bus in the building. Another person was there telling Vice he's making decisions like a reality TV. He starts running around the village like an idiot. Cameras are following him. He's drawing so much attention to himself. And then OUR learned that a rumor had spread. The medical team was there to identify who was infected with the virus. Soon after, villagers gathered, some reportedly with shotguns, and they began yelling and getting riled up, with senior elders asking the team to leave. And as they did, several cars followed them out to make sure they didn't come back. Which is why some have said if you look behind the facade of Ballard's heroes getting killed, the kidnappers you find it profoundly concealed. They which, along with its right-wing themes, is why critics find OUR comparison to itself as a slavery activist in the 19th century, despite the sense of
New kill leader. Eyes up,
OUR
farm.
began marketing a painting for sale back in 2017 that depicts Tim Ballard, his wife, and a third figure carrying sleeping black children down a railroad track while they were attempting Harriet Tubman was on approving. But anthropologist Bradley Kramer saying in response,
Flatline
it's
rock.
a parody of the white savior narrative, saying it steals the imagery and the power of the Underground Railroad narrative and transforms it into this Trumpian fantasy of brave, powerful white dudes rescuing black people from their squalor. But all that said, despite all of its detractors, OUR has become a fan base, especially as the Trump years unfolded, to justify a movie about that. The Sound of Freedom focused on one mission OUR was involved in that did actually happen, though the film heavily fictionalizes it. You've got Ballard canoeing into the Colombian jungle alone to rescue a little girl, fighting with a trafficker in hand-to-hand combat, and killing him. Playing Ballard, the film cast Jim Caviezel, who was a controversial figure in his own right. You may know him as Jesus from Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ film, that along with his director was widely accused of anti-Semitism. But now, more recently, he's gotten attention for his strong belief in QAnon, which, in case you forgot, somehow revolves around the military are locked in a secret cosmic war against the cabal of satanic cannibalistic pedophiles who control the world. And one of the conspiracy theory's wackier ideas is that these elites maintain their life force by harvesting adrenochrome, a stress hormone they believe is excreted by tortured children. So when Caviezel was promoting Sound of Freedom at a conference dedicated to nihilism, talked about how Ballard couldn't consent because he was saving children from the darkest recesses of hell, where they were being murdered for their adrenochrome. Then on Steve Bannon's podcast, he said the whole adrenochrome empire is driving demand for trafficking children. Even Tim Ballard himself told Jordan Peterson that he condemns most conspiracy theories, but that the children in Africa are being harvested for their adrenochrome, which is also why a lot of QAnon followers ended up being disappointed to find that Sound of Freedom didn't explicitly mention adrenochrome or any specific QAnon beliefs. So that could also be because the movie was filmed back in 2018 before the conspiracy theory really took off. But still, you keep pointing out that the film plays with the theme of kidnapped child sex trafficking victims being rescued by a visionary hero. So there was some concern that Sound of Freedom would introduce relatively moderate conservatives to a watered-down version of QAnon, easing them into the more insane part of the conspiracy. And actually, sure enough, those concerns appear to be vindicated when the film burst into the mainstream as a surprise box office hit, and that largely due to effective marketing and a film that Hollywood doesn't want you to see, with a number of conservative outlets, pundits, and politicians promoting it. So much of the audience became not just like going to a movie, but a way to maybe save the children and take it to the shadowy elite. Hell, even in the movie itself, Jim Caviezel appeared on screen at the end and urged viewers to buy more tickets.
Listen up, I'm getting shot at.
And so that huge financial success in Ballard's anti-trafficking empire.
Just giving my...
Since then, it's kind of just gone downhill. To start off, we learned last month that Paul Hutchinson, an executive producer on Sound of Freedom, wrote the naked best of apparently underage trafficking. OUR operator captured footage of the incident as well as a phone call between Hutchinson and Matt Osborne, and an operative and now the president and chief operating officer of OUR. And in that, Hutchinson expressed his concern that he'll get in trouble with Mexican authorities, and Osborne tells him not to worry, but to keep the video away from the U.S. Embassy. Unfortunately for them, however, the Davis County Attorney's Office and the FBI opened an investigation into it. Notably, they closed it this year without filing charges. But regardless, it exposed evidence that OUR lies to the public about the nature and effectiveness of how this work and misuse. Many former employees describing how the organization would do very little to kids as the market suggests, and instead they donated money and equipment to foreign law enforcement agencies and then took credit for those agencies' work as if it was directly involved. Hutchinson, as it turned out, was only real big fish that agents
Good
were
thing
probing
I'm
was none
inside
other
the
than
ring.
Ballard himself. Right in June, just before the film released, he left the organization that he founded, and last month we finally found out why. An internal investigation had been looking into sexual misconduct allegations against him by at least 7 women. The sources telling Vice News that Ballard would invite women on undercover missions to play his wife, and then force them
Calling in a
into
lifeline package. Gotta treat yourself.
Sources also told Vice they had noticed himself
Listen up,
where
I'm getting
they
shot
said
at.
he also allegedly invoked his own divinity in connection to the Mormon church to persuade women that testing the sexual chemistry with them was an act of abuse by God. According to Soda personality Eric Lucas, he said that he spoke to at least 4 of the victims. Ballard exploited not just his relationship with President M. Russell Ballard, a powerful figure in the church movement he's not related to despite sharing a last name, but also psychic readers in the process. Last month, a Utah attorney representing the women accused Ballard of sexual harassment, spiritual manipulation, grooming, and sexual misconduct. And the total number of women involved is believed to be higher than 7, as Ballard only accounts for not contracted with abuse. Now with that, Ballard has flatly denied all these accusations, but then on Instagram he posted a video defending what he called the couples ruse, where a male operative pretends to be romantic with a female operator to fool traffickers. But Monday, 5 women filed a lawsuit in Salt Lake City accusing Ballard of exploiting the couples ruse to sexually assault them, where he allegedly told them that having sex with them would help improve their real marriages, but that they still shouldn't tell their husband. Also allegedly asking them, is there anything you wouldn't do to save a child? And the woman also claiming that when he spoke to Nephi, right, that centuries-old prophet, he was actually getting ketamine treatments and making up prophecies about how he would become the future U.S. president and ultimately usher in the second coming of Christ. But with that said, some of this
Looks like I'm inside the ring.
Now several other right-wing figures ended in. For example, you had Charlie Kirk compared Ballard to Elon Musk and Russell Brand, both men accused of what he referred to as sex issues or fake financial crime. And adding, if you effectively speak against the regime, they will crush you. Now, with all that said, in the meantime, Ballard appears to have founded a new anti-trafficking organization called Spear. So he appears to still be chugging along, though for the other star, Jim Caviezel, Set of Freedom's commercial success doesn't seem to have reversed kind of his estrangement from mainstream Hollywood that he's felt some passion to price. Though, understand, his career is going to be fine, not only because they're making Sound of Freedom 2, but because Mel Gibson has cast him in the sequel to Passion of the Christ. But with now all that said and us hopping out of the rabbit hole, at least for a little bit, I gotta now pass the question on to you. What are your thoughts here? And then, let's talk about yesterday today. We take a look back at yesterday's show where we covered so much news. We then dive into those comments and we see which stories stood out to you, what your thoughts were, what your opinions are. Sometimes you share experiences. And yesterday, there was actually a pretty decent spread on what y'all were commenting on. The AI news, some of you were concerned. Some of you excited about the prospects. But some of you said, I hope Phil is comforted by the fact that AI could never accurately fake his hands when talking. We would know, which, ooh, maybe. Which I will say, we have actually looked at how we could incorporate AI into the show. It's largely connected to voice cloning. Because, sometimes like a Friday, a Saturday, or Sunday, I'm not just locked in this little box of a room. I'm like actually outside doing
Only
things
1
with
minute to
family, so
go.
I can't record. So we tested AI voice cloning, but it's not fully there. Like, here's a sample. I really wish my AI voice was better because then I could do something I love more than my job, which is not doing my job. It's 90% there. Then, of course, the scary side of that is that someone can just make you sound like you said a thing you didn't say. Also, in more serious news, you did have people leaving comments around Hamas, Israel, with a lot of people really focusing on Bernie Sanders' statement. They all saying things like, Senator Bernie Sanders captured my views to the point. It's imperative that we understand and acknowledge the complex history and conflict between Israel and Gaza without advocating for all the tragedies and horrors occurring. If at any point you disregard the tragic loss of life as justice, then you may be contributing to the cycle of hatred and mindset that influence this conflict. So if y'all are sharing your personal experiences, saying things like, my friend is a Palestinian born in the U.S., horrified by what has happened, and today he learned his uncle was shot in the head while attempting to flee to Jordan. He wasn't Hamas, he wasn't a terrorist, he didn't harbor any hate for Israelis, and yet he was killed. So many innocent people are going to continue to die, and I can't stop crying. That person sharing that personal story, it feeds into the kind of the general feeling that I saw a lot of people have. There's comments like, whoever wins between the Israel-Hamas conflict, the innocent civilians on both sides will be the biggest losers, and that's the saddest part. But then finally, another story that got a lot of attention was George Santos and those new charges, with really people just kind of still shocked that he is a member of Congress. So I will say, if you've watched this show for long enough, you've been a part of this community for long enough, how are you surprised? Accountability is just not a thing that happens in Congress. Sometimes, but especially not when every single vote counts. There's a lot of willful blindness. So some saying George Santos is a perfect example of why government officials need more in-depth background checks, better qualifications, and can be fired without pay. But I will say, if he is found guilty, the pay is the least of his worries. But in the meantime, we live in a world where someone can do something horrendous and despicable, but you get to just say fake news. That's just the playbook now, so we're going to have to wait to see how the legal process plays out. And that actually brings us to the end of your daily dive into the news today. Now remember, if I haven't completely melted your brain for more news you need to know, I got you covered right here. Click the tab right up in the description. And of course, as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you right back here next time for more news.
1 minute till ring close. Ring's not that far. "30 seconds until close. Wicked." Just 10 seconds. Only one more squad left.
Final round. Beginning ring countdown.
Ring's not that far. "30 seconds. Isn't my birthday already? Patch me up, though. Just 10 seconds. I'm spotted. Taking fire.
Warning.
Pussies. You wanted to play me 3-on-1. What? What is happening with this? Are you not even showing the game, you little fucks? What the fuck? What the fuck are you even showing? You showing this? The fuck? I'm gonna delete that one. I'm gonna go to game capture. I'm gonna go off. I'm gonna go on. I'm gonna go back to the game and see if it shows up. Okay, I don't know what was going on there. Nobody saw my hole. Take it down to the second place. Dylan Dennis's punch at Logan Paul and fights break out at press conference. That's not really what happened. Logan Paul got up, acted like a douche, flipped something at him, and he fucking knocked him with the mic that he had in his hand. He played stupid games and got a stupid prize. That's what happened. Stupid games and stupid prizes. Let's go back to my history. And we're gonna rewatch this guy.
Wait, this commander was a white dude, correct?
No, he was a black man. And I'll tell you, as to your point, your first name didn't even matter in the military for the entire time you were serving in the uniform, that I was serving in the uniform. Certainly your political views didn't matter. Your race didn't matter. And it didn't matter ever if you had a white commander leading black airmen or you had a black commander leading white airmen. That wasn't something that people cared about because you expected a talented, thoughtful leader to help you understand your mission in a broader context that was maybe geopolitical, maybe it was there are certain political aims to which your mission was attached. And it was all in defense of the nation and the Constitution and the American ideal, our way of life, our freedoms. And that had all, almost with a bang after George Floyd's death, gone out the window, and the same activism that you saw spreading across the United States on the nightly news was the kind of activism that was coming from my base committee. And I recognized it at once as unacceptable behavior for someone who's in uniform. And so I took on it was a slow realization. It was months in the making, but I realized that this is unacceptable enough that it requires feedback. It requires a formal written complaint to the Space Force Inspector General's office. It required talking to members of the Joint Chiefs, my old boss included. President Trump, shortly after I began this conversation in September of 2020, issued an executive order banning the teaching of critical race theory and the banning of diversity and inclusion trainings in the military. And that stopped all of the political activism writ large throughout the Defense Department, with the exception of a few small pockets, I suppose. And one of those, fortunately and unfortunately, was my base at Buckley. I had a guy who couldn't help himself. I also had an activist chaplain who did his bidding and who couldn't help himself but denigrate the United States and the white man, which was totally unacceptable. So that led to a bunch of things.
So just to clarify, these leaders were knowingly and purposely disobeying an order from the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief.
Yeah, all of that conversation.
Yes, helped the political activism writ large throughout the Defense Department, with the exception of a few small pockets, I suppose. And one of those, fortunately and unfortunately, was my base at Buckley. I had a guy who couldn't help himself. I also had an activist chaplain who did his bidding and who couldn't help himself but denigrate the United States and the white man, which was totally unacceptable. So that led to a bunch of things.
So just to clarify, these leaders were knowingly and purposely disobeying an order from the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, by knowingly and purposely.
Yes, but craftily, they proceeded with their indoctrination so as to be able to deny that they were wittingly or purposefully indoctrinating, subversing an entire base population. If you were to ask my base commander, does he believe in Marxism, he'd probably scratch his head and say, I'm not sure what you mean by that, and he genuinely might not know. But that's one of the reasons I thereafter wrote a book, trying to help educate the hey, I was just reading it too, by the way, before we jumped on this call, because I forgot what I wrote in there.
You weren't kidding, like, people have resoundingly in the reviews called this the best description of Marxism that they've ever heard, and it matters more now than ever. Most people don't actually know what Marxism is. They're like, well, communism, what's this, what's that? Would you explain that? And then we'll get into, like, what happened to you after you wrote this, but would you give the listener right now, explain to us exactly what Marxism is and how we're seeing it in our lives and how we've seen it as well as throughout history and how you know that it's re-emerging.
You know, it's so tough to, I kind of really dislike mainstream media, the big news shows, because if I'm asked to go on there, I get 60 seconds to describe things. And so I very much better appreciate a podcast like yours where I can take a little bit of time at least. But That's why things like this, questions like this, do require a book sometimes, is because it's difficult for someone who's never grappled with these ideas to, in an instant, start to absorb them. But I'm going to try and be as succinct and real and true as possible, so that hopefully it's helpful to someone who's not thought through this before.
Come and get your birthday present.
Predates Karl Marx. Okay, communism and a communist league asked Karl Marx.
Wow, you fucking vultures! What the fuck was that?
Manifesto for them that would state articulately their views, and Karl Marx published what is now known as the Communist Manifesto, what we all recognize and have heard of as the Communist Manifesto, a century and a half ago with the help of Friedrich Engels, and it has 4 parts in it. And in those 4 parts of the Communist Manifesto, Marx wrote his young, bright ideas down about how he best thought it was possible to incite the working class into a violent revolution. He divided up his narrative of human events into 2 groups: an oppressor class, this is all in part 1 of the Communist Manifesto, and an oppressed class, that was respectively the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. And he gave the proletariat sufficient reason in the manifesto that they needed to unite as workers and, if necessary, violently throw off their oppressors, the modern capitalists. Okay, so as a starting place, and if someone wants to look into this more, I've described it fairly well, I think, in part 2 of my book, Resistance to the Revolution. It's in part 2 where you can go, I go through in detail all 4 parts of Marxist Communist Manifesto. But the difference between Marxism, which is an ideology, it's a thought about communism and about violent revolution and about the oppressor versus the oppressed classes, and communism is just that. Marxism is the thought of Karl Marx about socialism, communism, and it's about communism. Yes, it is, but it's also a broader view of human events that I've already described as the oppressor versus the oppressed. Communism is a form of government, where the government has control of economy, the means of production, and is something. There's literally 1,000 videos available, or there's 10,000
Just
videos
giving my shoes a
available
recharge.
on
Target spotted.
communism
This
and
way, let's
communist
go.
countries that you can go look at after this. But Marxism is the thought of the man, Karl Marx. The apologist for Marxism will want to tell you, well, it's really all about economy. And Karl Marx admittedly wrote a lot about economy. He wrote a little bit about it in the Communist Manifesto, but he wrote a lot about it about Capital
Help on if you need.
and elsewhere. And one of the things that I saw when I began to study Marxism, the ideology that was permeating all of the countries across the globe in the late 19th century and certainly throughout all of the Cold War, was that there was an emphasis on hitting one class or group of people. For whatever reason, early on in 19th
Enemy down.
later it was usurped to be about race relations and an oppressor class and an oppressed group of oppressed people. Because the spirit of it all is the same, but the narrative has been adopted to our modern circumstances in the United States. Because that narrative of human events
Back behind you.
that can be leveraged to create anger and racist divisions to get people to unite together in violence. The other, the evil other. Okay, that is what I want to say. So, as a starting point, I'll say that is Marxist ideology or Marxist thought. The idea in the end is that it brings about a revolution that will allow for a communist state to be established. The first successful revolution, by the way, that led to the establishment of the communist state was a little over 1 century ago now in Russia. And within like 2 years, the world communist party established in countries across the globe, to include our very own United States. It was like 1919, 1920. That wasn't exceptionally popular.
Well, we got third partied over there.
And it became
So the purpose of this is, what's the underlying purpose? You're talking about people who want to adopt people, people listening about the people who are adopting. Isn't that what it is?
You were just a messenger. I get that.
They don't practice it,
Could've
they're
done so.
hypocrites on planet Earth. What's their... Why did they do it?
Well, it's a tough question, because the nuance matters, and there's no one-size-fits-all answer, but
Shield battery here.
I want to reemphasize something you said in your question, and it's that wokeism, and Marxism, and postmodernism, and feminism, and LGBTQism, and all of the isms, and the causes, and the social justice affairs in which humanity has been involved for decades now. Black pride. I mean, I'm not meaning to give offense to anyone, but at this point, I don't really care, because all of these isms are really connected to the spirit of Marxism, which in my book I tried to show was the spirit that animated
Ready up. It's go time. Let's not finish quickly. Where's the fun in that?
We'll get a win if your heart's in the right place.
Introducing your champion.
Jets, we're dropping hot. Hostile over there. Forget that.
Jump drive out.
Round one.
Pay attention, some of us aren't inside the ring.
Attention. First blood.
First blood already. They're shooting at me. Recharging my shields. Enemy right here.
Giving him the chimney. Give me a sec. Recharging shield.
Activating jump drive. 10 seconds until the ring closes. Grab what you need and let's go.
Healing. Watch my back.
Progress.
We're all outside the ring, and a wall of death is coming our way.
Attention, delivering care package.
You hear that? There's a care package coming down.
Extended heavy mag here. Level 3. Shops open for business. You are coming home with me tonight.
Attention, there is a new kill leader.
New kill leader. If they're getting cocky, they're getting sloppy. Weapon supply bin here. Look twice. Extra compartment. Found extra supplies here. Arm up. Healing.
Calling in a lifeline package.
Shops open for VIPs only. Beleza. Another beautiful piece.
Putting down an evac tower. Eating lead. Taking a knee. Patching up. Look out, enemy here. Actually, no. Give my shield a recharge.
Round 2, beginning ring countdown. Attention, delivering replicator.
Replicator incoming. Let's make ourselves something nice.
The Illuminati and the century prior to Marx,
Contact
Adam
with
Weishaupt
target.
and others leading up to, I mean, Adam Weishaupt, I think, dies in 1830 perhaps, and it's the same year that Karl Marx is. I might get that wrong, 1820, 1830, but I mean, they almost overlap. And I think it's most appropriate, frankly, to take the spirit of the ideology all the way back to the beginning of recorded history, which is world history and mythology. We've got adversarial.
You guys gonna help?
In a man's ear, you've been dealt with unjustly. You've been treated wrong.
They're both down there below.
Brother has taken something that belongs to if you use violence,
You know it just does. We have to watch each other's back.
that the enemy
3-0 brings close. We land the chimney. Picked up our squad mate's banner. Confirmed kill.
History, and it has different names, and it wears different masks. And Marxism wears different masks, goes by different names.
Listen up,
I
I'm
don't
getting
care if
shot
it's
at.
Black Lives Matter in 2015, 2018,
10 seconds. Off the mic. Spotted.
Here's
the
your
impulse
birthday present.
of anger that leads to violence
Recharging my
because you've
shields.
been dealt with injustice. That a bunch of homeless white people in Chicago exhibit when they're smashing windows and tearing down and burning down society is the very same spirit that's been since the beginning. All you say about that. And understanding that, I thought, man, you can never do this narrative justice unless you like lay it out a little bit.
Care package incoming.
And so,
Let's get to the LZ.
with a bit of a chip on my shoulder and begrudgingly, I put pen to paper trying to describe this a little bit in the book as best I could, and pointing people to other sources. And I think I did a pretty good job. I think it's led to a bit more of a national dialogue about what we're suffering in the uniformed services as a consequence of this kind of rhetoric about the evils of America. Now, don't get me wrong. I want to be clear too. Like, I mean, I just went to the Black Hills and went to see Mount Rushmore for the first time in my life, like 6 months ago. And on paper, I've always thought, man, that's like American exceptionalism. And I got there, and it really bugged me. I looked at the chiseled out mountain, and I thought, well, that's pretty disrespectful. And I don't think George Washington and Thomas Jefferson would have. Is Jefferson up there? I know Washington is. Abe Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt. But you know, like, I looked at those guys and I thought, I don't think Washington would have wanted to stay carved on the Native American Black Hills Sacred Mountain, right? And so, like, I'm very real about the evils of empire. And the United States suffers from the evils of statecraft like any other empire in history. Staring at my volumes of The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire in front of me. Yes, that's a very real part of the unfolding history.
45 seconds, rings just up
drama.
ahead.
But America's ideals are great. American exceptionalism is rooted in the ideas and ideals that our founders tried to ensure in the form of a Declaration of Independence and a Constitution. It's for those ideas and ideals that we fought the Civil War, I think. And it's for those ideas and ideals that you have the great oratory of Martin Luther King Jr. or other champions, real champions of civil liberties. And we undo all of that when fools rush in trying to solve problems that have already been solved and are adamant that we're just so evil that we must be toppled, and so we topple statues, we burn cities, and we destroy buildings. And I'll tell you what, and then I'll stop. What I saw in the unit in the Space Force was a base commander who was parroting Marxist narratives of American history, and I saw young people who were 18 and 19 and 21 getting on their Twitter accounts and on their what's the highly compromised in the world are all compromised? TikTok. Getting on their TikTok accounts, their Instagram accounts, and they were clicking this narrative because they saw others and they wanted to send out a
I broke that one.
So when you have young men and women that are signed up to serve protection, but are also in their free time parroting Black Lives Matter and saying that they hope to expose the Baltimore first off, they should support them and pick out of the service, but they weren't, and they were protected. And so I knew instantly we created sufficient cultural problems for ourselves. We'd likely see the disincentivization of a massive amount of Americans from service in the military, which we have, and we'd run into terrible retention problems too. What we'd see people leaving.
do you believe that's intentional? Like, I look at everything the military is doing, it's almost like they're trying to make
45
people
seconds,
not want
rings
to join.
close.
Like, all my fellow veterans, everyone's
Mama's got you now.
confused. Like, people are, you know, people I served with, which has now been 13 years ago since I've been out, or 11 years ago since I've been out, excuse me. Everyone's like, looking
That's a
around, like,
sick
what's
Evo
happening?
shield here.
It's almost like they're
Level
trying
2.
to level out the United States military to become such a weak force that we will not be able to defend ourselves. Let me ask you this, let me just be point blank. Do you believe that we have been infiltrated? Do you believe the United States has been infiltrated? Do you believe that, and if so, why? What's the, where's this heading? Let's get into this. What do you think is happening? So you have all this experience. You wrote a book about this. They relieved you of your command. You're essentially fired. They're doing drag time story hour on base, correct?
Yeah, drag time story hour is permissible, but not someone who's an enemy of Marxism, apparently. And, you know, here's the height of irony.
Listen up, I'm calling a lifeline
The amount of
package.
blood and treasure that this country spent to combat communism and to contain Marxist thought during the Cold War, a half century of fighting. The Korean and Vietnam Wars are the ones that people mostly pay attention to, because the only ones the United States had a really involved participation in. But there were wars fought with Marxism in countries all over the world during the same time. And it's over at the beginning of the 90s. And it's like the great beast of communism is behind us, so we think, and we're sitting high and mighty as the global hegemon, and we think all is well, and we're comfortable. And our aim is actually, but also in the United States military, yes, every institution at the highest levels of government. That's been demonstrated. It's not just a theory. It's been demonstrated that we've been infiltrated. However, so that's the simple answer, but I really squirm a little bit. I like listening to sometimes, but I want to be careful with what I say. I don't think that everyone who participates in the revolutionary fervor
There's one up top to our left.
is a witting,
Enemy spotted near me.
avowed Marxist. I don't
They're
believe.
impressionable and going and fitting in, right? Isn't that what a lot of people do? They go after the young ones because, like, more than anything, kids just want to fit in. Young, impressionable adults. I should call them kids. Like, even people in their very early 20s are still kids in my mind because they're still figuring themselves out. And I think that one thing that people have noticed anything in the last few years is that more than anything, people just, they don't want to be ridiculed. A lot of people know that things are messed up right now, and a lot of people won't speak up out of fear of just having their friends be like, what do you consider? Stuff like that.
Listen up, the rings
So I
will
saw you took heat recently. You asked some question on Twitter like a couple weeks ago about Hitler.
Yeah.
And now you're an Nazi all of a sudden, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
so to anyone listening, like, so I recently went to Baalbek, Lebanon, just a month ago, actually. And I'm making a video on it. It's going to be spectacular. I have pictures of the silicon stones. The largest stones ever cut, carved,
only 2 other squads
stacked
left.
in human history, total mystery. It's in my mind, it is arguably the best example of lofty civilization that there is to present. So,
Here's your birthday
and
present.
what's interesting is at this site,
Firing.
by the way, over to Lebanon at the side of Baalbek, and that's like 800 miles as the word implies. And not only that,
Enemy over here.
these stones that were meant to cut. And brought up a mountain, like the Lebanon mountain, an average 6,000 feet, but at this spectacular site, there are numerous
I don't even know where I'm getting hit from. You gonna come pick me up?
Get rid of Saddam
Give my shields a
Hussein,
recharge.
Here's the modern day Hitler. So like, I feel like I shouldn't have to say
Get me
that.
before they come. Oh my God, you're so late.
But before I looked up, I would have
He's down in the he's fucked up. You should come pick me up.
why did he right put in into looking for the rail, even the word hammer. This is people should read about this. This is Indiana Jones.
Storm Z402 says,
events
good
that
game.
The Nazis were actually looking for these artifacts, and I want to know why. Because and how people the Nazis were, they were unbelievably
Scrappy DP says, you didn't even try to pick me up.
At that time, they invented the jet engine, they created the Volkswagen Bug, they created the microphone. This was an unbelievably sophisticated civilization. I want to know why they were so interested in archaeology. Anyway, so I made some posts on Twitter showing literally the swastika, it's not the swastika, in front of, these temples. And I was asking, I was like, why did Hitler and the Nazis know something about lost ancient civilizations that we don't? And then all these academics came after me, they're like, you're a Nazi, you're pushing Nazism. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm asking a question here of historical significance. But that's the world we live in now. You can't talk about anything without having people. I make videos talking about the pyramids, and people tell me that I'm denying Egyptian history. It's like, you can't ask questions anymore. But I didn't mean to cut you off there. People I recently went through this, and to be honest, I'm just a fighter. Like I don't care as much as some people would, and I kind of thrive when people are coming after me a little bit, and especially when you know that you're in the right. I'm like, me asking why was Hitler looking for the Ark of the Covenant? That's a legitimate question. Let's focus on the Ark of the Covenant for a minute.
It's legitimate.
Not with you.
Yeah. Well, it's a legitimate question. It's fascinating to me as well. Frankly, we talk about these ugly things like Marxism, but I'd rather go watch your next video on what you found in Lebanon.
Yeah. Baltic Lebanon. I'm telling you, I made a video on this a few years ago now, so now it's time to redo it, and I'm so grateful that I went out there, especially the timing of it, because now we're seeing what's happening in the world. You have Hezbollah in Baalbek. It's run by Hezbollah. They're the government. They run the show. You have to put your checkpoints.
I do wait for inspiration.
And I'm so grateful I got out there when I did, because the way, Hezbollah is talking about going into Israel, there's all kinds of crazy things going on. So I'm unbelievably fortunate about the timing of it. But let's get into some juicy stuff here. Okay, so you're with the Space Force. Let me just ask you this, because I need to be a nerd for a second. So you flew the F-15 and you went on to train people in the F-1. So the F-15 is the big boy, and I'm an airplane nerd. I'm really into jets. A lot of people aren't aware that I took flight lessons, and I was going to be a commercial airline pilot, and then I ended up deciding to do Iraq instead. And it ended up not being the profession for me. Like, I had a buddy that went down the commercial airline route, and I realized quickly, it's like they take all the fun out of flying. Like, it's a freaking job. And for years, you start out doing the crummy flights. But anyways, that F-15. So what's the fastest you've ever been?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to answer that. I want to answer.
Get ready. Moving up.
Make one other comment.
Got a face runner over there. Never mind. Might be something good that you
about how easy it is for people online to criticize your curiosity and affecting YouTube, for example, is quick to remove a video that makes any reference to Hitler. Like, you have to have some official history channel or something where you're doing a really careful academic deep dive if you want your content to remain on YouTube.
Round one, beginning ring countdown.
I talked about on one of my old podcast episodes, I only did my podcast for like 4 months, about the Nazis for a few minutes, and
the battle happens quick. Be ready.
Removed, from YouTube. The real Nazis in spirit today are those who seem to be screaming. There's like this inner totalitarian screaming to get out, and they're the first to accuse they're the people sitting in the halls of Congress right now who want to shame Israel for defending itself against brutal attacks of Hamas.
Squatty down.
Selfish should be asked, right?
There are people that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay, but that's the Nazi spirit. It's the totalitarian spirit, and Nazism and communism are both evils, and we should be able to talk about those things and be curious about those things. So,
Contact with hostile.
Over Mach 1 is the fastest I've gone in an F-15. It's a supersonic aircraft.
Not Mach 2. Won't that hit Mach 2?
No, I never hit Mach 2. You'd be in a dangerous spot if you hit Mach 2 in an F-15. But
okay.
The Super Cruise that's available on like
Got us a new kill leader. Wouldn't mind saying good day to him.
Means that you're able to break the sound barrier without putting the aircraft into afterburner. F-15s and the other 4th gen fighters require you to have afterburner to break the sound barrier, and so if you're either running away or to a fight and you need to lob the AMRAAMs down the range, then you'll fly a supersonic flight profile at a certain angle of attack and launch your missiles, and then you'll turn and run away, and that's about the only times you'll be in afterburner unless you're in a close
Looks like a care package is
dogfight.
coming in. Big things in that.
To be clear, I didn't see combat in those envelopes, but you train every single day in those envelopes, and so you become very familiar with them. And you know what the speed of sound yeah, it's no different. You see your instruments jump and bounce a little bit momentarily. When the loudest part of the flight envelope in an F-15 is your corner velocity at height.
Just a scare. 1 second.
So diagrams that you reference tell you exactly what airspeeds to fly at, what altitudes, certain speed mode, and if you're flying at corner velocity,
the moon is a harsh mistress.
And you can hear that inside the cockpit. It's awesome.
I bet it's wild. I just saw a comment. Someone's asking about the TR-3B. So here's the deal. We're 40 minutes in. At this time, we're going to move this over to Rumble, and I want to jump into the big questions. I'm going to ask you about the TR-3B first. I'm going to ask you, have you ever seen a... Don't answer right now. Don't even nod. Everyone, the link is in the description. It's on Rumble. It's streaming for Rumble. It's streaming there simultaneously right now. We're going to move it over there. We're going to get into the real juicy questions. I'm going to ask about UFOs. I'm going to ask if you've ever seen anything. I'm going to ask if you believe that the government is hiding anything. I also want to ask you, well, I got a number of questions I want to ask you, the most provocative things of all. So at this time, we're going to move this over to Rumble. So hey, everybody on YouTube, hit the link right down there in the description. For the shows that we're live, brother. Now, it'll take a second for people to start filtering in and watching. Let's see, I got my lovely assistant hitting refresh on her screen to see when it starts. So, give us just half a second.
You bet.
Realize like there are a few people in this world that are willing to stand up and do the right thing and speak out. Like more than anything, people need to speak out when they see something wrong. And you're the guy that did it, and I deeply respect that. And so I'd encourage other people to support you in your cause. And I know there's other things you can't get into, but there's movies and other things being worked on to help get this story out. But at this time, I'm going to hit end on the YouTube live stream. Everyone just hit the link in the description for Rumble. It's streaming there simultaneously. So at this time, we'll see you on over there.
This ain't me first rodeo, mate.
Let's see if that worked. All right. at this time, we should just be live on
Now
Rumble.
run with me.
I
I'm
think that all
ready
is
for a
good.
match.
Alright, so I'll give them like 5-10 seconds before I drop the TR3.
Sure.
Magic is in the eye of the beholder.
You don't mind if I you dive into all this stuff, right?
You're welcome to ask me anything under the sun, but whether I answer is a different question.
We're gonna see. Sometimes not answering is the answer. Okay, hold on. Let me see my mic. Pull my mic a little further up. Okay. Thank you. Get some feedback here. The people who watch my other live streams, I blew it with the mic. I'm learning as I go, and this isn't going to be the mic I'm going to use in the long run. I'm upgrading. I'm going to plug in the DSLR camera. I'm in the middle of working all that stuff out right now. But anyways, that being said, let me just, how are we looking over on Rumble? How many people are on there right now? What are we looking at here? 4,500. Sweet. All right, so are you familiar with the TR3B? That space vehicle.
This might be a good place
I'm
to
as
land.
familiar with the
Enough
TR3B
landing around.
as
We drop it.
probably some of the viewers might be who have read about it online.
Wow.
But not much more that I can say. I'll tell you something. Let me share a story with you though. I've seen some interesting things, but not in my official airport plus things well in uniform as well. But
First blood. Good
I've
thing
seen a
it's not
couple of
us.
things because this gets into when someone's asking
New
about
kill
the
leader. Go on,
TR3B,
watch out.
and they're wanting to maybe go down this into the realm of UFOs, UAPs, stealthy reconnaissance aircraft, anti-gravity capabilities aircraft, etc. And I'll say up front that I don't necessarily know much about those things from a real-life perspective, but I have seen a few interesting things. Once was in the Colorado mountains.
Ring's close. 45 seconds on the clock.
That kind of fits the profile, and another was an experience I had in the Tucson mountains when I was in high school before I joined the military. Did I share that with you, Jimmy? Have you heard that?
No. And
Not far
before
from the
you do,
ring. Half a
yeah,
minute.
just real quick, because I want to knock it out and get it out of the way, and I hope people will forgive me, but I need to do it. I have 2 sponsors on this show that I need to read out.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Let me just knock that out. It'll only take 1 minute. And then we're going
Got
to get
some
into
extra
that.
supplies.
So, everyone knows that's followed my channel. I've never once done any
Helmet
brand
here.
deals.
Level 2.
I don't feel like
Rings
interrupting
around the
my
corner.
shows to
10
discuss
left.
and market something. These are companies that are supporting me. They are pro-freedom of speech, they're pro-American, and they're actually quality products. I never market anything unless I've tried it out. It's actually something I will purchase. And so let me just go ahead and show you what I'm talking about here. This will only take a moment. But first is Field of Greens or BrickHouseNutrition.com. These people have been very good to me.
G7
and
Scout, yeah.
what they do is, hold on 1 second. Is this showing on here? Perfect, it is.
I see.
A lot of people aren't eating their vegetables or their fruits, and the studies are conclusive that you live longer and have reduced heart problems and other aging ailments if you consume proper vitamins. And a lot of people aren't going to cook it. They're too lazy, they don't feel like it, they don't like the taste of it. So what they have done is they broke this down into powder form. It actually tastes delicious, like very, very tasty, these type of powders, and you're getting your nutrition that you need. And I highly recommend it, especially for people that have children and they don't want to eat their fruits and vegetables. They sent me a whole battery of different things to try, and I couldn't believe how tasty this stuff actually was. So I'm telling you, like, this is stuff that I'm now using daily. It's delicious, and so if you go to fieldofgreens.com, it will take you to Brickhouse Nutrition. You'll get, and use the promo code Bright Insight in the description. You get 15% off your first order and 10% off a subscription. So I highly recommend that. Now, the other thing that I want you guys to know about is CBDdistillery.com.
Come and get your birthday present.
Real quick, bear with me, almost there. Hold on 1 second. Bear with me, people. I'm talking about the aliens. Okay, here we go. CBDdistillery.com. So what's great about this site is that you're going to get the top level quality CBD that you'll find anywhere. I've got guns in the grocery store, and the reason is because this is an unbranded
Where are these guys?
market.
Where are these guys you're shooting?
I've tried CBD stuff that I was like, I swear, I'm like, this is a big freaking scam. It doesn't do anything. But when you buy from a quality company that actually use high-grade ingredients that are authentic, you get what you pay for. And if you use my promo code Bright Insight on CBD distillery.com, you'll get a fantastic deal off your purchases. In fact, it's 20% off. But another benefit is that we have so my pet,
Listen up,
or
I'm
I should
getting
say,
shot
Tom
at.
Sawyer, who's a living being, beautiful animal of love. He has bad hits, and he also has anxiety.
Just giving my shields a
This stuff
recharge.
has actually worked well for him. So again, go to cbddistillery.com as well as healthynutrition.com or fieldofgreens.com, and you'll get all that good stuff. I'm done. Let's go straight into it. Tell me about what you saw in the mountains.
Yeah, well, let me just, I'll back up for just a minute and say, I meant what I said. I don't have any exciting insider knowledge about reverse engineered alien spacecraft. Okay. But I tried to pay a little bit of attention to this, and documentaries, and read some
Don't get third party, just come back over here.
about the extent of it. But I have seen some things that one of which, the most startling of which, took place in Tucson when I was in high school. And I've shared this elsewhere publicly. I won't give you the long version here, but I was
Motherfucker. I love how I roll the fucking wheel and it just goes to my hands.
We didn't just become mates for you to catch and shot. It's like an oasis of trees and pine up there. I think it's where's the pizza? Yeah, snows up there. So in the middle of the desert, you'll have snow up the mountains.
Yeah, you can overlook the city up there. I was probably halfway up the mountain, I'm guessing. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I was up there with the girls. But I was up there with the girls in high school, and we had lunch there. We were sitting there. It was nighttime. And we saw what looked like orange ball, not ball lightning. It was not, as rare as that is, it was not ball lightning. It was stationary, it was silent, I couldn't tell how high up it was. And when both of us recognized that something was there, it zipped down right over our head to be close enough that I bet you I could have hit it with a rock if I had thrown a rock at it. Instead, I stood up and picked up my chair, and we both sprinted to the car and booked it out of there because we were terrified.
Approximately how large do you estimate?
I can't estimate. That's the hard thing. I'll tell you, it looked like a. Let me think about this for a moment. It was larger than a basketball. It was quite large.
But not as big as a vehicle.
I couldn't tell, and this is why. Let me explain why. It was not a man-made aircraft. It didn't look material enough to be a man-made aircraft. No one was sitting inside of this thing. But I could not see.
Translucent?
I could not see through it. But I got the feeling, if that makes any sense, from based on what I could observe with my eyes, that if I was close enough to it, I could have put my hand into it like it was energy. Okay? And it seemed conscious of me and conscious of the girl I was with, and then sit down without sound, again, very quickly, to say, not to say, but as if to intimate that, like, hey, I've got consciousness, and I'm very much aware that you're looking at me. As if it was me. And then it zipped off. And let me jump now forward in time to 2015. I'm in my house with my wife, as it turns out, luckily our first days. And we're watching a documentary that was produced in the year 2020 called Phenomenon.
Yes.
Phenomenon.
Stephen Greer, correct?
You might be in it. You're thinking of Disclosure. But, he might have been in it as one of the many, many testimonies witnesses that they gathered in for the documentary. But I've always been a skeptic.
What the fuck?
Spacecraft or these objects that are unidentified originated from outside of our solar system, outside of our atmosphere, outside and that much more likely to me, anything that people were seeing was a product of human creation.
We're not all in the ring. Quit
That's
farting
been my
about, would ya?
lifelong leaning. I'm watching this documentary with my wife, and I was compelled. I thought, boy, there's a lot more witnesses to these kinds of events than I had suspected. And we get about halfway through the documentary, and if any of your listeners or viewers have seen this, are they watching us on Rumble, by the way, or just listening?
Both. They're watching and listening. We got over 6,000 right now. 6,100 watching time now. It's great.
Hey, in case you missed the first half, go back and listen later to us talk about the evils of Marxism. Now we're on to aliens and and hopefully there's no Marxist aliens. No, well, there are. They're coming across our borders right now in the United States, but they're
in droves. There's only millions and millions of them. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. They're just refugees that need a helping hand.
And I'm sure there are some of those too, but they don't need spacecraft.
10 seconds. The ring's just ahead.
A pair of sneakers, and they're on their way. But I paused this documentary, and I say to my wife, what they're describing right now in this documentary, the air traffic controllers that are seeing these balls of light go zipping back and forth across the flight lines. I said, I've seen this before. I saw it when I was in high school, and I was in the mountains of Tucson. And she says, no, you haven't. And I said, no, I have. She says, you've never shared this with me before. Again, it's 2021. I graduated from high school in 2000. And I've been married to my wife for 12 years. I've never shared this experience with her because as impressive as the experience was, it was just out of sight, out of mind. Like, I didn't know what it was. And I'm usually not into telling my wife stories about times when I was hanging out with girls in the mountains.
You hear
so
that?
it
There's
was like
a care
something I
package
hadn't
coming
shared with her
down.
before. So I say to my wife, I'm going to prove it to you that this is an authentic experience. I go sit down at the computer on Facebook, and I look up the girl that I was with. Her name is Kate. Kate, Scott, if you're listening, hello.
She sounds hot.
Kate was online at like 11 p.m. when I went on Facebook. She had a little green dot next to her name, and so I typed in my first message to Kate for like 20 years.
Yeah.
And I said, hey Kate, how's it going? By the way, I'm with my wife, so don't say anything back. Too late. I said, do you remember when we were sitting in the mountains and what we saw? I didn't indicate anything about it. She said, you mean that? She said, hey, how's it going? You mean that giant UFO that zipped down over our heads? And so my wife was stunned that this girl who I hadn't talked to for 2 decades remembered right away what I was talking about. Here's the strange. I asked her what color was it? And she said green. And
memory.
It's memory. Like I'm certain it was orange. She's certain it was green. Whatever it was an energetic ball that zipped down, and maybe she saw it as green. I don't know, but to me it was orange. And I can't explain that, but I can tell you what I observed, and my honest observation is that it was not a fleeting phenomenon. It was a very conscious, it seemed, permanent, capable something. And it might have been the size of a Volkswagen Beetle for all I know, and it might have been 1,000 feet up, but it looked like it came within 100 feet of me, maybe even closer, and was larger than the beach ball.
I have 2 little stories that are so similar to yours. So one of which is my brother and his wife were up in Pine, Arizona, which is on Mogollon
Extended
Rim,
light mag,
2
yeah.
hours north
Level
of
2.
East Phoenix, and they were staying in an Airbnb,
Sniper
and they had a
stock
lovely
here.
patio.
Level 2.
This was in
Just
like the
7
twilight,
scout
just
here.
after dusk,
Sniper stock here.
and we
Level
saw the
3.
same thing. We saw a orange orb that was glowing and going horizontal across the sky, pretty low. They're not sure how far away. And they both were doing the whole, like, are you seeing this? Am I seeing this? Are you seeing this? And then, 90 degree, shot straight up, instantaneously gone. And these aren't storytellers. My brother and his wife are lovely people. They're not bullshitters. They keep it real, and they have no idea what they saw. They don't think of it.
Got some materials here.
I have another buddy who's a pilot, and he was in his vehicle or someone else's vehicle. This is that night, and they were driving. I don't remember what state it was. We saw something glowing. There was an orb. And what happened was it showed up. They were all talking about UFOs, and this thing flew right over it. So when you mentioned that, like, you thought that you knew that you were consciously going back and forth, like, once you guys became aware of it, and then it came towards you. So essentially, it was a similar experience what you had described.
Yeah.
So they telepathic, like, what is going on?
Yeah, I don't know. And I'll tell you, even though I had that experience, and even though I study ancient civilization, and like I look at what you're posting pictures on Twitter, I'm interested in that stuff too, and I think there are different ways to interpret and make guesses about what we see happening in those ancient civilizations. Do I think they're advanced? Absolutely. Do I think that aliens zip around in spaceships near the Earth? I still am reluctant to go there, but I believe in angels. And so, like, there's something there. There's something, and I don't think they usually show up in spacecraft. I mean, we don't have any record of Gabriel showing up to Mary in a spacecraft.
Got a replicate hostile close. Supply bin there.
But you know, I'm open to. What do I want to say about this? I want to wrap that part up, and I want to share something else. But
half the squad's a dust.
I think I'm pretty open-minded to possibilities, but I'm also a bit stubborn in the worldview that I've adopted. At the same time, if I believe that it's authentic and right, and it's bearing fruit. And so when I hear stories of ancient aliens, for example, my mind instantly goes to, well, yeah, like I know that the divine would sometimes interact with men on the earth. I believe that. I was here in changing gears. I was in Idaho, where I currently live, and I was at dinner with my wife, and it was December 21st, the winter solstice, on 2020. And for all the stargazers out there, you'll remember that there was a planetary conjunction on the winter solstice of 2020, and people all over the world watched this unfold for weeks. It was like this unfolding drama up in, at least where I live, in the southwestern sky, and Jupiter and Saturn were approaching one another.
30 seconds, rings close.
Until they got within roughly, I think, maybe a degree of one another.
Weapon supply bin there, if you like.
And we came out from the restaurant. I go out on the front patio, and there's a couple standing out there, and they're just struck with almost fear, pointing to the southwest. And I look up, and instantly I look, and I say that's the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn that I've been watching unfold for a couple of weeks. And I said, wow, what is that? To this couple, and they said, we think it's UFOs. And it was, I said, well, they said, well, we're not sure what it is. I said, well, I can tell you what it is. It's planets. That's Jupiter and Saturn. And they looked at me like I was an idiot. You know, they're like, how could this guy think those UFOs are planets? Right? And so I think that there are, we live in the modern world. We don't see stars and planets very often, and so I think the modern man is relatively disconnected from the starry heavens.
Looks like a care package is coming in.
The kinds of events that you just relayed and that I relayed about my experience in Tucson, those kinds of things have happened a lot to people, and I can't discount them. I can't explain them. But there's something to all of that, and I suspect perhaps we'll continue to learn more about what that all means. But don't underestimate the capabilities of the most powerful governments on planet Earth that are spacefaring nations to develop wicked, cool technologies that will blow your mind for how fast they can travel and what they look like. And don't underestimate governments to run propaganda campaigns to trick people either. And so there's a lot there as well.
Let me ask you that then, type right into, do you believe that's what's happening? Like when I see all these, the Pentagon's acknowledging off-road craft, like in my mind I'm thinking like, well, this is strategy. Like maybe they developed it from recovered craft, or maybe they developed it from their own. Level 2. Sort of next generation, next level of technology. But in my mind I'm thinking like they're playing this against China or the Russians to be like, you know, well, we have something. You be careful before you do too much of us because you don't, you know, we have this.
Rings
So
nearby,
when you
1
see all
minute
these
to close.
disclosures coming from different people, these alleged whistleblowers, I was hard on that David Grouch guy because I'm like, I just don't believe him. He didn't see anything himself. Everything he had was hearsay. He got approval to literally share what it is he did share, which was hearsay. To me, I'm like, it was a big nothing burger, and I felt like he was, I shouldn't be mean, but I'm like, he was full of it. But if I'm wrong, and he actually knows something, great. So my question for you is, what is all this? Is this, what do you make out to be with this UAP disclosures?
Yeah, I agree with you that if he knows something, he sure didn't share a whole lot of it.
What do you say we move here?
His public testimony. You know, if the guy got, I think he had an audience with Tucker. Not much was said there.
Here's your birthday present.
Not much was said
New
there.
kill leader. Go on,
So
watch
I'm
out.
not really impressed myself. What do I make of it all?
Evo shield here. Level 3.
Yeah, that's alright. Let me
Reckon we got a care
share a couple
package
of
here.
thoughts.
Kraber here.
We're all inside the ring. Good.
Okay, so you asked me earlier
Got us a
about
care package
how
coming
fast I've been in an F-15. Okay? Pilots, especially fighter pilots, have gone a lot faster than your average human being who drives in cars and flies in Cessnas and flies in commercial aircraft. But it's still not that fast. Supersonic is over Mach 1. Okay? There are much faster capabilities that the United States government and the Chinese and the Russians, I'll just mention those three, they're easy, have developed than our world's best fighter aircraft that goes supersonic. By definition, supersonic is above the speed of sound. Hypersonic is an altogether different animal, and for a long, long time, the countries I mentioned have been developing hypersonic weapons, and by definition, hypersonics are
Enemy
greater than
spotted.
5 times the speed of sound. Now we're at Mach 5. Russia has hypersonics that go Mach 1.
I'm spotted. Taking fire.
Look
out, grenade. Reach out.
So you have a vehicle that skips along the corridor, let's call it, and space, like a flat and it decides, or controlling agency decides when it's going to dip on into that deep atmosphere, water, and insert itself and get on the move for whichever city it's going to target. Okay? And these things that are moving at hypersonic are very
Took one.
Rob says, get out of field.
let alone shoot down.
Yeah, but I fucked him up. He's dead. One of them's dead. You just have to pick the other two out. There's only one there, I think.
That's architecture, ground-based architecture. You can look up and forth to heaven.
Hold bloody still, will ya? I'm doctoring the best I
Coming
can.
up,
But it's gonna
and then we developed the space-based architecture, and we can now have what we call in the military and the space community as dual phenomenology,
Hostile spotted.
where we can look and
Definitely lost now.
the witness and the sensor, and then we can zero in on it, and then once it burns out, it's on a ballistic trajectory towards some place, and you can tell exactly how many minutes and seconds it's going to be until it gets there, and you can predict with pretty good precision what building it's going to fall on, plus or minus a couple hundred yards. When you've got something that's hypersonic and isn't burning out and is potentially maneuverable, you can think that, okay, good, we've got it. In 1 minute, it looks like it's going to hit New York City, and 10 seconds later, it's making a 40G turn for Chicago. That is the kind of a military weapons problem that our senior leadership in the military is and should be focused on. And it's one of those few wicked problems that will keep the best engineers up thinking about this stuff and figuring out in programs that you and I have never heard of how to target and track, identify and track and lock up and kill. How do you shoot the bullet that's faster than the bullet that your slow bullets, right? And so this is a really big problem. And I wouldn't be surprised, I share all of that to say I wouldn't be surprised if some of the testing that governments do is occasionally witnessed by the casual observer. And when you see a flash of light going across the sky faster than any airplane that you've seen, what could that possibly be? There's no man up there flying that aircraft. It didn't even look like an aircraft. And do they hover? What's the capability that's propelling those things through the atmosphere? Those are all questions that you can go down the path trying to talk about those things, and people speculate that there's some reverse engineering of alien spacecraft, there's anti-gravity drives and whatnot, and whether or not that's been realized by governments, we certainly have it in our tool bag to produce wicked fast instruments. Let's put it that way. Okay, so that is the very realistic side of me, saying that there's one plausible explanation for much of what people see, but there's much that still remains unexplainable.
Quick question: that when you mentioned the Russians having technology or vehicles that can go Mach 20, just to clarify, are those drones, or those missiles, are those manned? I'm assuming not manned.
No, those are not manned aircraft. By the way,
imagine people couldn't withstand that type of.
No,
I mean, I don't know. It seems like it has to be small and very aerodynamic.
You'd be squished.
The rocket, right? It's the rocket.
So, I was in a strategy class in Alabama, and a girl that was sitting in the class with me talked about manned space flight, and got in trouble because in the U.S. military in 2020 or 2019 at the time, it had become unacceptable for her to use the term manned space flight because it was sexist. So she was.
I'm offended. I'm offended right now. I'm shook. I'd like
manned
to
space
take
flight.
a pause here, and I'm mad too.
Sorry, I triggered you.
That's it. Hey.
Yeah, there's so many questions about all of this. I don't know all the answers here, but I can only speculate just based on things that I've learned and seen. And being in the Space Force, I can tell you I was interested in and focused on hypersonic glide vehicles. I was wanting to learn more about that technology, and you can't learn a lot about that technology in the unclassified network that your listeners have access to. So, but you can go watch videos about this and see what they look like, and they're not manned aircraft. They have the kind of futuristic shapes that sometimes, I mean.
Yeah, they almost look like triangles, huh?
The TR-3B.
Oh shit.
And you look at some of the artist's conceptions of what some of these capabilities look like, and you start to see things that look a lot like hypersonic glide vehicles. So that's something for the viewer to go dig into.
Real quick, let me say two things. One, Rumble now has us on the front page of rumble.com, so anyone going to Rumble is going to see us, which is so awesome. I'm so grateful. And two, we have a really cool question here. Adrian says, my name is Adrian, I went to school with you. There's a Deagle report forecasting a large population, or maybe a D-class report, it could be misspelled. Forecasting a large population decline by 2025 seems fitting considering the state of our country. Conspiracy? Question mark. Do you remember it, Adrian? I was going to say, let me say this real quick. There's a lot of comments with people asking your thoughts on the election. I'm assuming they mean 2020. Okay. So because this is one thing I want to dive into. You and I have chatted personally about our grave concerns about what's pending here in the United States. And seeing as there's a lot of questions with people asking this, and you're somebody that's lived a very interesting life. You've mingled with some very sophisticated people on a government level. I guess my next few questions for you are, it goes along the line with Adrian just asked you. Is there something happening right now that suggests that there is going to be a large-scale population decline, whether it's World War III, whether it's vaccine? I mean, you what do you make of what's coming? I know you are a fellow prepper along with myself.
I sometimes tease. My wife and I enjoyed watching some episodes of Doomsday Preppers back in the day because it was hilarious. Whatever the reasons were for the world coming to an end, we got a good laugh. And now it's like you're a little bit crazy if you don't start Doomsday Prepping a little bit, right? If you're paying attention. So like get some extra food and get some water. And for heaven's sakes, if you're in the United States, get some guns. So, like,
would you prefer you're a gunman as well?
Yeah, I'm not a big gunman, but I have guns. You know, I think there's like 400 million guns in the United States. Luckily. Well, and unluckily. Unluckily and luckily.
If everyone cared, and when I say everyone, I'm not talking about crazy people. Like, I'm not talking about insane people, but, you know, there was a period of time where I like to study the American frontier, and, you know, once upon a time, you know, I think that if most anyone had a gun, a lot of things that we're seeing happening in the world would not be happening. 911 is too far away. I'm a man of a philosophy of self-reliance. People don't realize, like, I used to work on ATM machines, and I was robbed at gunpoint doing that, and, like, between one of my best friends being killed in Afghanistan, there's things that you don't think will happen to you in your life, and seeing it happen, and I realized, I'm like, Murphy's Law is a real thing. Like, whatever you don't want to happen can and will happen. I've seen it. Things that I knew would never happen have happened to me. And so to me, I'm like, that's like the warning sign from the universe, which says, can you hear me? Are you okay?
Oh, good.
We're good? Okay. The warning sign that says, you know, so anyways, I'm going to do a podcast. I'm looking for someone leave a comment on who you think your favorite gun person is, fellow YouTuber, because I want to, like, talk about concealed carry. I want to talk about weapons to have for the apocalypse. But getting back on track, do you fear there's a depopulation thing happening?
Okay, so you've mentioned a couple of things. Adrian, I've got an Adrian in mind. I don't know if that's still in the comments. Just say hello, Adrian. You know, I've only encountered. Okay, let me say this about depopulation. You get like 12 thoughts that come into your mind, so you have to pick between them and decide what you're going to say. I think that the West is facing a terrible demographics problem and shift right now. I don't think we're having as many children as the Muslim countries, and so if everything else in the world was left status quo, let's say.
Ground vehicle delivery confirmed.
A radical decline in the European West, I mean, including the United States. But I don't know if that's what he's referring to. Now, that leads to a whole bunch of other questions, problems. You mentioned the election. I'll say something about that briefly. But I'll also say, the COVID vaccine, which has demonstrably been proven to be high risk, unsafe, dangerous, could be part of that kind of plan, let's say.
It's a nice way of saying it.
Yeah, that's dangerous, deadly, is a more accurate way of saying it. And
get in here, jeez.
Mine, whose work I'd like, is a Army Lieutenant Colonel named Salam, who's been public, and so I don't mind mentioning her name. She shared publicly with Senator Ron Johnson.
Not one person.
Publicly, the Defense Department's, it's called the DVAD.
We've lost a teammate.
It's like the vaccine adverse events reporting system, VAERS, that people in the civilian world know about. The DoD has a reporting system that's similar, and Lieutenant Colonel Bruce a long time ago shared what they were recording in VMED by way of adverse events for our service members for that vaccine alone. And she and others, and myself included publicly, were warning that if the DoD mandates this, it's putting the force at risk. And it did just that. And not only did it put the force at risk, we've had some of our service members die as a result of that vaccine. Although that was denied, that's abundantly clear. We've had a tremendous number of blood clotting problems and every other autoimmune problem you can really imagine now that's being tracked and lawsuits inside. And we not only did that to the force, but we also discharged honorably and otherwise, without their pensions in many cases. I think that was 8,000 service members, 8,000 service members who refused to comply with what they considered an unethical and illegal order to get vaccinated against their conscience. whatever. So you could easily see whether or not it is. You can easily see how someone could come to the conclusion that that's a part of a plan to put the military. And it just so happens that the roughly 1 or 2% of our military who was so adamantly opposed to it that they refused to get it and then found their way out the door here pretty soon, whether it was then or a year ahead, happens to be Christian people and staunchly conservative. So if those get they're not very compliant. But there's a lot of good people who got that shot. I'm not denigrating them. There's a lot of good people in our military. Doesn't mean they have courage, but there's a lot of good people. And we need good people in the military. And I think many of the people that did get that shot regretted it in the military. I happen to gravitate towards the military when I start talking about these things, and I know there's plenty of civilians and others that have suffered from their decision. I just talked to one this morning, in fact, who's a government civilian. The election, it's my view that the 2020 presidential election is...
Hold on.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, before we get into the election, because that's going to be a whole thing in itself, I just want to let you know real quick that Adrian responded with another $10. Adrian, you're the man. Adrian Roberts is his name, and he said thank you.
Yeah, you bet, Adrian. 2020 election, it's my view. See, I don't like using cliche phrases, so I'm going to say this very deliberately. I think that there was so much fraud that was rampant in the presidential election of 2020 that that's going to bug me. It just really boggles my mind when people say there's just no evidence of that. That's just utter hogwash. Michigan, Pennsylvania, and a bunch of other battleground states, and probably, presumably, I've heard great presentations and conferences at which I've spoken over the past couple of years. In places all over the country, this is a problem. I think it's been, we've had tampering and meddling in elections for a long time. I think, but I think it's really hard to deny that it was a critical role in the outcome of the 2020. So that's my view. Others disagree. I don't really care. That's my view, and I'm kind of tired of thinking about it. In fact, because it's like, geez, over and over, it's the COVID vaccine. Is there really a debate there anymore?
Right.
Yet there are bright people out here who have public voices, who have a totally different view than I do. Whatever. That's fine. And that's the amazing thing about the human being, is that you can be all confronted by the same information, or you can sort your information however you want and see completely different pictures.
Well, let me tell you what Jimmy thinks. 100%. The only thing I disagree with me is 100% stole that thing. So I'm in Maricopa County, and
Terry Lake.
Yep, Terry Lake. They stole. So here's the thing: they stole 2020, and the same people that did that had to steal it from Terry Lake because she said that when she was running for governor that she was going to do an investigation and hold those accountable. And she was adamant or very convinced. Let me not put words in her mouth. It's pretty clear she had concerns there, and then she wanted it on it. She wanted her own investigation. And then I went on the Rogan podcast earlier this year, and I briefly touched on it at the very end, and I said that I believe that this was very late, and then it's so great. Like Maricopa County, like Donald Trump in 2016, and somehow it went Joe Biden in 2020, and I don't believe there's so many different reasons I cannot believe it.
You guys let him believe truth if it smacked you in the face is the problem.
Not the name dropping thing, but she got that clip to her, and we ended up chatting. So a few days after I went on Rogan, and chatting with her over the phone for like 45 minutes. She DM'd me on Instagram, and she called me, and that lady is for real. She tells you exactly what she thinks. She's very down to earth, and a lot of people don't realize that she was a television anchor for like 30 years here in Arizona, Emmy Award winning. So it's like for her to dump that and expose it, she said the media people are literally not only the lowest character people, but some of the dumbest people we love to meet, and I'm starting to get a little piece of it. And so yeah, I'm a Terry Lake supporter. Everything under the sun was better under Trump. And to me, I'm like, like you said it very well.
God, we're destroying this team. I just looked at the score. What the fuck?
The reason why people keep saying that is because CNN, MSNBC, even Fox News, they kept saying it over and over and over again. They kept doing it's like a rule to radical. You just keep saying it a lie over and over and over again, and people will start to believe the lie. It's like there is no evidence. People know, like, I mean, there is no evidence. I said it 1,000 times. And then I had friends who were liberal. Look, I'm like, there's no evidence. I'm like, oh, that's not true though. There is evidence. There is definitely things such as this fuckery that went on. But to me, it went to a whole other level, and we don't have to go down that whole tangent. But I feel liberated. The reason why I want to like say like etched in stone exactly how I feel is just because you know, now that I couldn't say that on YouTube, I feel like I have a platform where I can say what I think is true. But anyways,
hey, so I tried to interrupt you a couple of times, but I know because you're using the speaker on your computer.
Yeah, I can't hear you. I can't hear. People don't realize we had a whole issue before we started. That's why we started a little bit late. I would have my headphones in, so I didn't know. So Brandy, my girlfriend, is here next to me and had it all caps on the screen. Probably like, let him talk. So what were you trying to say? I didn't even know. I was looking at the camera half the time, so I didn't see you. I couldn't hear you. Forgive me.
Yeah, that's okay. It doesn't bother me, but I don't remember what I was going to say. I was listening too well. I was listening too well to what you were saying, and it's totally escaped me. But it's important. This is one thing I wanted to say. It's important for influencers such as yourself to be able to freely express your view. Let's say you're wrong about the election even, but like it's important for you to boldly, unabashedly, unapologetically share your view because it enables.
Thank you for letting me share my view in
America. Who should enjoy the right of free speech, to think clearly, to speak courageously.
The right of free speech applies to the government not infringing on
right
your
now
speech, buddy.
We've been trained for a couple of years by
Doesn't apply
the apparatus, the establishment, the man, they, to be afraid to say what's really in our hearts and on our minds. And a part of being a human being of character and with integrity is being able to think clearly and to speak and articulate your views without fear. And that's hard to learn, but like people need to wake up and get some courage and to try to express themselves freely. And then if someone has a better view, then they should be willing to be persuaded that there is in fact a better view and then move on with that better view and to champion that view. But yeah, you shouldn't, there's no reason, especially with the abundance of evidence that's out there, that we should shy away from saying we think that elections are being stolen. In fact, it takes either a large amount of, I don't want to call it courage because I don't want to use my words, fortitude, brazen, stupidity to say that it wasn't.
Hey!
I mean, like, in the face of all of the evidence, those people have some cojones to go out there and to deny this stuff. And it just shows that either they're ignorant or they've got quite a bit of brazen to go out and toe the party line despite all of the evidence that we're confronted with.
Right.
Oh, this is the other thing.
What was that?
The other thing.
Oh, good. Here we go.
Okay, so I remembered. There have been... I'll jump down off my soapbox and calm down for a minute. I've seen, and I've been asked before, whether or not the Space Force have or has a knowledge of the outcome. The Space Force has the data, okay? And I'll preempt the question in case anyone's. I don't know anything about that. I knew a lot about what the Space Force is doing, but I just simply don't know anything about that. And I don't know exactly what that means that the Space Force would know. And my guess is, and it's just a guess, that because of the line of work that space does, it's very interconnected and interwoven with cyber, and interconnected and interwoven with the intelligence community, that maybe the space community has.
Is there a team out there?
Real information. But like, my response to that is, so are you, and so is every observant American in possession of real information about what happened in 2020. You know, like don't think that your U.S. military that's led by Lloyd Austin and Mark Milley's going to come out and tell you what really happened in the presidential election someday. You've got all of that available to you, and it's been good reporting done and good investigative. Good findings that have been released over and over again that demonstrate what we already know.
I have two questions. One, I want to ask, what is the most fascinating, interesting thing that you're aware of related to space that other people might not be aware of and we can share. And then I want to segue into what you foresee coming in our future. Like this ties into what we were talking about in the beginning of this podcast.
Just stay with our flag and don't.
Enemy flag returned.
It appears that they are trying to take over this whole thing. So first, like, what's the most interesting thing about the Space Force, or something that you can share with us that others are otherwise wouldn't be privy to?
Power items incoming.
And go from there. Is there technology that exists that is being kept?
Yep. But here's something that I can share that you may not be aware of. How to put it. I was surprised by the level of cooperation. No, let me make sure I'm careful how I put this. I was surprised by the overlap, interplay, cooperation, and synergy between the Russian and Chinese space forces.
Enemy flag.
Now, they don't have an independent branch of the military in Russia and China called Space Force. They've got other services that do those missions. In fact, they created a special service in 2015 for people. But I'm talking about the capabilities of the space architecture that Russia and China have. The United States is the most powerful space force, to use that term, on planet Earth. However, that's when compared to
Go!
And so I'll leave it at that probably. But I was surprised to learn at the combined capabilities of those two countries so well complemented.
What is the fears that you have that you think are the most likely thing to happen to this world, this economy, the human race, what have you? What keeps you up?
Well, I sleep pretty well at night. Nothing related to fear is keeping me up at night, although I think there are fearful things on the horizon. I'll say that I get to sleep at a good old hour and wake up pretty early, and I do most of my fearful thinking during the daytime. And
what is it? What are those things? Is really what I'm asking.
Well, my worldview and my interests and my studies and my thoughts are broader than we're going to talk about on this program, and so what's been an interesting experience for me in my life, let's say, is that I've been a guy 2 years now in the making, publicly talking about Marxism, and it's been a very small slice of the pie of my life and things that I've studied, and my views on it are shaped by a much broader worldview that is spiritual in nature, it's ancient history in nature. I mean, if you can see everything that's on my desk, I'm going to give you a sampling here just because it'll give you some evidence of what I'm talking about. Okay, I've never done quite this before, but like, this is not staged, okay? My truck looks like this, my desk here, my office looks like this, my home looks like this. I've probably got 40 books, 50 books sitting next to the end table in my living room next to the couch. I'm writing a book right now that will come out next year called Courage, an Invitation. That's one of the things sitting on my desk. I've got Ken Wilber's A Brief History of Everything sitting on my desk. If anyone knows anything about Ken Wilber, he's
I recognize this like we're too late.
He is related to some of what we're talking about. But forgive me for a minute. I'm going to go through this for like 30 seconds and then I'll answer the question. Because this is kind of unique. Like, you don't get to see this every day.
Good work. Good work. Good work.
Robert Strasberg.
Come back.
Is there a team out there?
Oh, suck a dick, bitch. You guys weren't playing. You played. Yeah, who carried who, bitch? Did you see the first fucking 15 minutes of that game?
So I had to go buy a headline mark for Robinson. He's got another one as well.
Bronze grade 3. Suck on it. Tell
read
me.
historical writing by Henry.
I remember
on
what
my
was
desk.
happening.
This is an interesting one. I found it just a couple of weeks ago, and so I had to get it to see. The Garden of Eden and the Flood.
I'm gonna have to pause
written
this
by-
and go to an actual. Oh, whoa! How the
Run, rumble,
fuck?
or someone else's beat.
Right there.
It shows that we're live, brother. Now,
Can I
we'll
not
take it.
fast forward through this?
It shows that we're live, brother.
Don't get to see this every day. I've got Robert Strassler's Landmark Herodotus on my desk.
Nice.
It's I'm talking about the capabilities of the space architecture that Russia and China have.
I'm gonna pause it there. I'm gonna go back to the tube. Go ahead, clear off. What the fuck's going on here? Clear off the screen. Oh, I should have probably put Discord on. Didn't even do that. Man, just slacking, losing my mind. I should probably go get something to eat if I'm gonna do it though. PS5 only? What's the point of this? Well, let's go to watch later. We got a couple things to get on with.
Today, in gaming news, we have uncovered that there are video games, and there are things occurring in or around those video games. We'll have more on this story right now. Sony has announced they are launching PS5 cloud streaming later this month, allowing them to join Xbox in the year 2020. Ooh, I got that. PS Plus premium subscribers could already stream games from older PlayStation consoles, but they'll now finally be able to stream supported digital PS5 titles from the PS Plus game catalog, as well as some other PS5 titles they
I don't give a
Unfortunately,
fuck.
a Game
We're gonna
Pass
go play,
Ultimate
what
Pillar,
are we gonna play?
this is not. At least not yet. Sony said that they plan to support hundreds of PS5 titles, but have only named a handful so far, which can only be streamed through the cloud on a PS5 console.
Not even the PS Portal? The runaway smash hit?
That's extra. Meanwhile, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate does support hundreds of games and lets you game on a virtual Xbox Series X through basically any device with a Wi-Fi connection. You have not truly gamed until you played Starfield on your smart fridge. So close to the next. I'm heading back into the Starfield. PS5 Cloud Gaming will first roll out in Japan on the 17th, then Europe on the 23rd, and finally in North America on the 30th. As a little All Hallows Eve treat. Naturally, any North Americans who can't access the service at launch are legally permitted to TP PlayStation's house. It's the equivalent of an apple in a basket. Overwatch 2 has managed to anger its entire player base again, this time by locking some of Season 7's new Diablo 4 themed character skins behind a $40 paywall. It's a Diablo skin, Michael. What could it cost? Specifically, the skin we're talking about here is the Lilith skin for the hero Moira, also known as the skin Blizzard prominently featured in the trailer for Season 7. But if you want to play as the Daughter of Hatred, you'll have to spend what you should spend Poorly, instead, on purchasing the hit indie game Dave the Diver twice. The Overwatch 2 community, who at this point have been let down more times than a kid whose dad keeps promising they'll finally take them on that fishing trip next weekend, was finally able to figure out that Daddy Kotick doesn't care about them anymore. I mean, last season in Overwatch 2, $40 at least got you 3 story missions with challenges and cosmetic rewards, and a DPS hero on top of some special skins. But again, you could have also bought 2 copies of Dave.
Action stations.
Awaiting instructions. Enemy force sighted on the horizon.
The ship is on fire. Problem solved, sir.
Airborne. Awaiting instructions.
Enemy submarine spotted.
Airborne.
on fire.
Awaiting instructions.
Problem solved, sir. Dead ahead. Torpedoes to starboard. Enemy destroyer sunk.
Why don't you rock right into them? Rock into them, bitch. Stupid fucking bitch. Well, I think I'm done then. That's all she wrote for tonight.
Gave the diver and given one to your dad, so he realizes what he could have had if he ever took you on that fishing trip. It's your loss, Dad! A streamer named BTCs/Bikers was banned from old school RuneScape, costing him $1 trillion in game gold pieces, which would have netted somewhere between 160 to 230,000 real-world dollars if he had traded it IRL. Ironically, he lost the opportunity to do that because he was allegedly participating in real-world trading, which game developer Jagex considers a very serious no-no. Now, because the sum of money was so large, BTCs had to resort to recruiting some of his viewers to hold on to some of the cash using their RuneScape accounts. RuneScape.
Hey kids, play RuneScape?
That's the knockoff.